Welcome, folks. Thanks for coming out tonight on a stormy night a little bit, so thanks for coming into the warmth. Welcome. Thank you for coming to a reading and question and answer forum with distinguished rising star poet and alum, Linzi Garcia, who is also a local luminary. I'm Kevin Rabas, Director of Creative Writing in the Donald Reichert Center for Publishing and the Literary Arts here at Emporia State, where I teach poetry, playwriting, and filmmaking, among other things, in the School of Humanities and Social Sciences. Rosalie Kringer, who is our media and outreach coordinator, and I welcome you tonight. And she created these cool screens. So let's give some snaps for Rosalie. Snaps and claps. When it comes to thanks, we also want to take a moment to acknowledge our sponsors, without which tonight's Visiting Writers Series program would not be possible. Thank you to the Emporia State Performing Arts Board, Dean Mark Meister in the School of Humanities and Social Sciences, and the Creative Writing Program. Linzi's poetry is characterized by wit, heart, grit, and zest. I think I put it best in a blurb I wrote for Linzi's new book, Cravings, which is up here, in 5 different covers, but she'll talk about that later. No one since Diane de Prima has brought such beat energy to the page and as much flair. Linzi's poetry is a blue-white butane flame, the peacock's plume, the guillotine blade. She does not look away from the eye of the flame. She looks in. What she sees and writes with the reporter's eye, the lover's heart, the saxman's ear, the beat's rugged walking shoes. So there's my endorsement. You can find that in the book if you get a copy. Here's a little bit more about Linzi Garcia and her accomplishments. Linzi Garcia comes from a beautiful family of Rocky Mountain artists. She moved to Kansas a decade ago to earn degrees from Bethany College. Shout out to Bethany College. And Emporia State University. We're all in on that one. She stayed in Emporia and now serves as publicist and poetry editor for Meadowlark Press, is a bartender at Mulready's Pub, and is the vice chair of the board of directors of House of Morrow, an arts and services nonprofit in town. She is the author of Thank You and co-author of Live a Great Story and While Away Travel Poems. Linzi is recipient of the NextGen Under 30 Kansas Award. I'm happy for Linzi Garcia and her accomplishments, as is our writerly community and school. Please give a warm welcome to Emporia and Emporia State's own Linzi Garcia.
Thanks, friends. Thank you all for coming. I have something for you. Homework. Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks. I have a gift too.
We love gifts. Okay. Hi, how is everyone? Good. Happy to hear it. Thanks for coming on a Wednesday night. It's Wine Wednesday at the pub, so way to choose being here instead. It's Poetry Wednesday for us tonight. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what to expect, and then I'm going to do those things. So I figured I would tell you about my journey as a writer, and through talking about my journey as a writer, I'm going to read you poems from those times in my life, up until this new book. Let's see. So a little bit about my academic and professional background. I came to Kansas to attend Bethany College. Go Swedes. Mary Beth Harris worked at Bethany, and I did not have her as a teacher, but was on her search committee, so you're welcome. That's right. I got my undergraduate degree in English, philosophy, and leadership. I worked at the school's writing center and served as editor of our newspaper. I was on student government. You know, in a small town, in a small school, you kind of do all the things. My friends and I, and this has been a theme throughout the day, we really wanted to start a creative writing club because there wasn't one, and that was something that we felt would be valuable for ourselves and for our community. So we started a creative writing club, and during that time I was introduced to the poetry community, and a lot of spoken word when you go out and see a lot of performances. So some of my early poems reflect that. With our creative writing club, we also started a monthly poetry series at the White Peacock in Lindsborg, where I also worked as a barista. You'll see a common theme. And I also hosted One Mic, the poetry series in Salina that they just started getting going again. So I went to Salina last Friday to go be the feature there, which was wild because that was the place it all started. I was encouraged by my creative writing professor, Lori Brock, to submit some poems for publication. We all were. That's kind of, this is going to be another common theme. You're expected to do something with your poetry when you are in college and get some experience publishing. And so I submitted 3 poems to the Young Writers Anthology, and they were accepted. Do you want to hear the first poem I ever had published? Okay. It's called Teach Me How to Rain. When I can't find the right word, sound, taste on the tip of my soured tongue, screaming the sky closer to me, I capsize, cascade, forget. My brother reigns, my flesh is ambushed by violent drops, savage wind, brief exposures of high voltage, high valleys, high voices, ear-raping thunder. Sounds of screams used to soothe me. But now the lightning bites harder than the sun. I am forced to write with the same intensity. Retaliation, frustration, no more patience. Howling, Mother Thunder, teach me how to sing. Father Lightning, teach me how to fight back. I have her smile and both of his fists. They never knew whispers or tiptoes or where I would go to break words under moonlit irises and burnt fingertips. Until the storm subsides, we run alone, naked, happy. Thanks. That was 2016. Before I continue, those paper hearts I gave you, and this will also be a common theme throughout. I have a little homework for you because I was once a teacher, and therefore I love assigning homework, and I'm not going to grade it. I would love for you during any portion of this time together to write a question you have for me, a comment you have for me, or an ugly poem, or a not poem, as I will describe later, just an observation essentially, or something you're craving, and we'll circle back around to all of this at the end. And if you were there at my book launch on Monday, we did this and I read them aloud, but today, because there aren't as many of us, I'm going to have you read them aloud if you're comfortable. If you're not, that's okay. After I had those poems published, I'm not going to read you the other ones. That was really, really encouraging, and with this poetry series and those publications, I was eventually invited to publish a book with Spartan Press my senior year of college. Wild. I have no idea how Jason Riegert found out about me, but I'm so grateful. Prior to that, I had put together a lot of little things like this. I have a couple typewriters, so I would type up my little poems and make my own little chapbooks. And this is what we ended up doing with our creative writing club too. And so I always put thank you on them because I think you need to be thankful for everything. And it is a way for me to thank you directly, even if I'm not saying it. And also it's my parents' wedding song. So, lo and behold, what do you think I titled my first book? This is Thank You, published by Spartan Press in 2018. And now I will read you some poems from that. Still kind of in that spoken word realm, this is one of those poems too. Spew. What a great word. I want to say what's on my mind, but know that what's on my mind is grungy and raw and kind of smells like a flower shop with a hint of urine. I want to know I have the power to hurt people and just hurt everyone a little bit for a little second, like a pine needle in the ass or a too hard high five. I want to not live in a limbo of professionalism and agony artistics. I want to create and create and create and fuck and create and drink too much coffee and get sweaty and cold. I want to gnaw at the hand of inspiration and spew the chunks that fall off in my mouth. I want to read poetry in the women's restroom and climb as many buildings as I can. I want to pretend to jump off and make everyone suck the air in real quick and intense. I want to make out with a book and get pregnant by swallowing its ideas. I want to birth its baby book and burn it. I want to spread its ashes on my softest parts and let tomorrow swallow me. And I want to not want so goddamn much. Thanks. My best friend is Cami Olson. We met at Bethany College, and she has been my best friend ever since. She is a wonderful painter, ceramicist, jewelry maker. Hey, welcome. No, make yourself at home. And we did this collaborative piece where she did a series of paintings based on each line or each couple of lines of this poem. And she wanted me to start the poem with the line, "Plant me with the lavender." So this is, I wish I were a garden. Plant me with the lavender. Braid my soft, dark petals between uncut blades. Press seedlings into each crease of my soiled skin. Wait. Nourish. Wait. Bury my root-turned toes to share kisses with worms and absorb the sky's sorrows. I will grow. You will wait to harvest me. Season by season, let the moon decide my shade. Let the bees arouse me and transfer my soul to the next sprig. Thanks. How would you spell an explosion sound? Like, what are the letters you would use? How do you spell that? Anybody? Boom! I probably should have just done that. Instead, I titled it Explosion Sound. I should seek more creative input. If you were a poem, I'd eat you, raw. Rip you right out of your freshly printed book and shove you as far into my ready mouth as my tasters and tonsils would allow without swallowing you. I'd marinate you in my saliva and muster patience for the slightly soggy, tender, but still complete version of your texture. I'd grind you down with my greedy and thorough molars and get your grated bits stuck where my wisdom teeth used to be. I'd save you in my gum and cheek pocket, and every time I'd pucker my lips, your words would shoot tingles across my entire mandible. The end. I brought a lot of show and tell items for you today. A lot of past publications, some of my reporters' notebooks. I brought free stickers, free poems, free bookmarks, and the thank you leaf. So, this is the title poem, Thank You. We fold into fog, state of coexistence and non-existence. All is at peace. Thank you. So, in May of my senior year at Bethany, I was just about to graduate. I had already accepted a job as the Communications and Outreach Coordinator for the Humane Society of Denver. And I was so excited to start my first real job. And during that time, I met Kevin Rabas. Kevin was doing a poetry reading also at Ad Astra. And I wasn't supposed to be there that night. I was supposed to be on spring break, and I canceled my plans last minute, and I was like, well, you know what? I should go see the Poet Laureate of Kansas, do some poetry, obviously. And I was so blown away by Kevin's performance. And afterwards, I was talking to him, and I shared that I had just published my first book, and I asked him if I could help carry his drums out to his car. And we got to chatting, and he told me about the Creative Writing Master's program at Emporia State. And I was like, well, if this is something you're interested in, you could come get your master's. And I was like, oh, that's sweet, but I already accepted this job in Colorado. I move in a couple of weeks, but thank you so much. I will, stay in touch. So I moved to Colorado, and I have never been angrier in my life. I hated my job. I hated the apartment I lived in. I hated the traffic. Oh my God, I was terrible. So I survived 3 months, and then I invited my parents over for dinner, and I gave this presentation about why I think I should go get my creative writing master's back in Kansas. And they were very supportive. And so Kevin and I had been staying in touch, and I reached back out and I said, hey, I would love to apply for that program. So he sent me all of the materials. I was accepted. I served as a graduate assistant, so I had my master's program paid for, which was a big deal, big deal. And I had the best time of my life. I served as Kevin's graduate assistant and helped curate and edit his poems for his poetry collections, and I learned how to do that for myself better. And I was also aware that Meadowlark Press was based here, and Meadowlark is part of what made me fall in love with Kansas. And I knew that Flint Hills Review was also based out of ESU, and I was like, all of these things are things I want to be a part of. So I took the Flint Hills Review literary magazine publishing class. Rosalie taught me everything I know about layout and design. I just had the best time. Of course, I had to teach a little bit, which was great. I love the students. I did not love the grading. And, having grad school paid for is great, but also I needed to make a little more money. So I got a job bartending at Mulready's. I got a job as a reporter for the Emporia Gazette, and made it all work. Let's see, let me check my notes here. Oh, as one of my wonderful moments of serendipity during grad school, during one of Dr. Michael Barron's classes, we all had to do this big research paper, of course, as you do, and mine was all about Walt Whitman. Some of you have heard this story already, but listen again. Some of you have not. I love Walt Whitman, and I wrote this awesome essay, and I submitted it to this conference for Walt Whitman's 200th birthday, and it was in England, and I was like, I'm not gonna get into the conference, whatever. Well, I got into the conference, and it just so happened to coincide with the study abroad program that I had also signed up for. Wild that those two things would be at the same time. So I told Dr. Mel Storm that I had been invited to this conference, and that I would have to ditch the group for a couple of days to go to Bolton University and give my presentation. And also, while in England, we had to do a research project of some sort, as you do in school, and somehow Dr. Storm let me study pub culture and write poems about it, and that was my whole goal, was to write poems about English pub culture. So I did. And not only did I do that and present at the conference, but then I got this publication from Analog Submission Press, which is an English-based press, published. So I am going to read you one of those poems. Oh, I'm going to read you a poem about the conference too. Of course I do include a poem about the conference. And then this is cool, this is something I wanted to share with you. This is the original version that was published, and then because you're allowed to do this, I republished that poem in my new book, but it's edited and it's a little different, so you're gonna see both versions of that. This is called A Good Hater. Don Scher told, context, Don Scher was the editor at Poetry magazine, and he was the keynote speaker, so I got to meet him too, which was, wow, fangirl. Okay, Don Scher told a room full of Whitman scholars Whitman was a good hater. And I wonder what Whitman would hate about us gathering in Bolton, celebrating his life, how his legacy changed us. Would he hate how everything here belongs to someone? How we discuss him indoors, pick apart his handwriting, his use of dashes? Would he hate how we quote him when he himself said quoting is a thing that gets to be a disease? Would he hate how we stay and listen until the end, even when we don't understand, even when we don't want to? Such a cool I made some friends at the bar, as you do, and we're still Facebook friends, and now they're like having babies and not hanging out at the bar so much. So this is about one of the people I met at the bar called Without Shadows. The edited version of this is also in the new book. At twilight, Ray told me nothing has a shadow. Snorting his paycheck away on overpriced coke, losing his woman, avoiding sleep, Ray has lost his shadow, does not know where to turn for light. Thanks. I forgot what I was going to say about that. Anyway, so Dr. Rabas, over here, Kevin and I, and another one of Kevin's students, Brett Seaton, based on all the travels that we have done for work, for pleasure, for school, we decided to co-author a collection of travel poems, also published by Spartan Press. And so it's just interesting how things like that snowball and turn into these other bigger projects. Just double checking my notes. Okay. How many of you have taken a road trip at night? Yeah, I think you'll relate to this one. It felt like a dream, so I called this one Dream Sequence Number 1. Driving in the dark, on and on and on and on, convinced the sun will never rise again. Thanks. How many of you have seen The Twilight Zone? Yeah, if you haven't, you should go watch The Twilight Zone. This isn't No Nightmares at 20,000 feet, please. I'm reminded of the Twilight Zone episode where William Shatner sees a monster on the airplane wing, though it appears he's just crazy. And I pray I see no such things on the wing or in the cabin, as these volatile times have some of us crazed and some of us monstrous. Thanks. I really like writing short poems. That's something that I've learned with Dr. Rabas. How can we pare things down to their most important parts? And so these are some travel shorts. Someday, these poems will be in a book. And I wonder what anyone else got out of this flight. What is that plant? Back home, corn. Out here, tobacco. Picket fences stretch on in all directions. No more barbed wire here. Grapes, not corn. Farmland in Johnson County. Outside the tent, mushroom cluster. What's died there? I want to leave a little energy everywhere I go, haunt every place I've spent a little life. Thanks. I have these ones for sale. Okay, so after I graduated from Emporia State, I continued to work as a reporter. I taught, I bartended. I got a technical writing job. And these are the things that made me realize that every version of writing that I have had to do, whether it was academic, creative, writing articles, writing essays, writing these really boring technical pieces, all of those things have informed each other. You can only get better as a writer by trying all the different types of writing you do. So even in the creative field, if you like writing fiction, write a fiction poem. If you like writing poems, try to write a short story. Try to write a play. Like, all of these things strengthen one another. And I really found how valuable communicating clearly and well is. And people really appreciate that out in the professional world. So eventually I got this fancy schmancy corporate job as a proposal and marketing director for an environmental remediation company based out of Kansas City. And of course it wasn't something I was passionate about, but I felt so valued because I got to be their writer. And now my main gig is Meadowlark and House of Morrow work. I lead our Diverse Voices Literacy program. So I go into 5th grade classrooms and teach creative writing to kids, and that is so cool. And then at the end of the program, we publish an anthology of the students' work. So they are all official published authors by the time they're 10. How cool is that? So building the resume young. So maybe we can work on something. Maybe we can expand this. Let's see, what else? Dion over here. Dion Morrow, everyone. He started House of Morrow, and he is the reason that I get to do the Diverse Voices program, and we're also doing a lot of other really cool things. He's a wonderful artist, hoping to collaborate on some art poetry books with him. He has an awesome mural in the Union, and that painting of graduation that you probably all walk by every day. So hit us up, we want to help you. All right. While all of those things were happening, while I was working a bunch, I was also writing poems. Because sometimes I just can't help it. And a lot of people are really dedicated to their craft, and I am more of the school of let the inspiration come to me, and I'll get it down. And sometimes that works, and sometimes that doesn't. And so, much like those travel shorts, out of my brand new book of poems, I am going to read to you a poem called Not a Poem. I think all of you writers will understand. Many poetic thoughts will never become poems because they're not poems. Some examples. The way each person at this table approaches their bite of food differently. Him teeth first, her tongue first, the baby mouth open wide. At home, I only drink coffee from other places, but anywhere else, I only drink coffee from home. You can't tell if the girl by the campfire is crying because of the smoke in her eyes or the breakup. He says he's going to read a piece from memory rather than recite it. The blue of the fall bushberries looking alien-like, out of place and extraordinary. These are not poems, and never will be, but rather practice at paying attention. So on your little pieces of hearts, if you want to write a not poem, these were some examples. Feel free to write a not poem. They're just little observations. This whole book is dedicated to people who pay attention. And I think the more you pay attention, the more you are grateful for, and the more you are grateful for, and the more you find these pieces of art in your life, the fuller life you live. So, in that same line of thought, I also wanted to read you a poem about ugly poems, because sometimes we just write bad poems, and that's okay. So you can also write an ugly poem if you want. Ugly, what a great word. Sometimes it's not about writing the prettiest poem. It's about pinning that poem to your back pocket, taking it out dancing, not letting anyone read it, ripping it off, tossing it to the floor at last call, and ditching it for another prettier poem. I really like, and what I also studied a lot of, is this plain speak poetry. I want you to understand it. I want it to be accessible to everyone. One of my main goals as a poet is to bring more people into poetry. I think a lot of people are turned off by the idea of poetry and think it's old and yucky and has to rhyme, and they just don't understand it. And yeah, there's poetry like that. There's also really beautiful old rhymey poetry, so don't get me wrong. But I really want to make these poems accessible, vulnerable, relatable. I want to help inspire and encourage other people to write. Just go after it. Write those ugly poems, write those not poems. Anything is helpful. All right. The book is called Cravings because of all of those cravings that you experience in life. I am 29, so most of these, and all of these were written between the ages of 22 and 29, so it's all of the things, the cravings I've experienced between 22 and 29 so far. Love, loss, not that you crave loss, but I don't even know how to finish that sentence. Food. feel similarly to some of these things, or if you don't, you're offered a new perspective on these things. So this is the title poem, Cravings. Oh, before I read it to you, I also, on the same note of those different cravings, the reason I have 5 different covers is because I think each of them describes a different type of craving. So this is me eating hot wings at the Peanut in Kansas City. We've got cake, we've got pomegranates, we've got a body. We've got all of these moments of what cravings mean and the different tones that the book covers. Okay, back to the poem. Thanks, Ed. Cravings. I've had my period 114 times. And what do I have to show for it? Embarrassing stories, a birth control prescription history, and a red perspective on what it means to be a woman. So far, I've dodged pregnancy, though I could have baked 9 babies by now. Now, I crave to make life with my life. Now I want to name the next generation after the last and teach them everything I know about family and love. Instead, I lay next to my husband-to-be, who's burned out by his 4 little accidents, and I bleed disappointment. Thanks. I always like to follow that poem up with this one. How many of you are accident kids? Yeah. Maybe you don't know yet. How many of you have accident kids? Wow, that's the first time nobody has raised their hand. This is called accident child. All the best people I know were accidents. Your grandma, your grandpa, your daddy. Your grandma's nickname was God's little dividend. Your grandpa, bastard. Your daddy, little devil. You, my baby, you all call poetry. Being a young woman is fun 90% of the time. This is called When You Propose. When you propose, I ask that you stand on your tiptoes and dangle that rock in front of me like a dead rabbit in front of a hungry wolf. When you propose, I ask that you do it on a Tuesday during happy hour and buy me 3 drinks and 7 songs first. When you propose, I ask that you make a grand announcement and make everyone wish they were us. When you propose, I ask that you do it better than he did. I might say yes this time. Thanks. Do you guys like to write in coffee shops? Yeah. Or just in a different setting? You like to sit by a window. You need that vibe. You need the right vibe to write. This is about that. Great responsibility. When I'm not writing, I stare out the window, smile at people and usually their dogs walking by. Not a quick smile and look away, but a meaningful few seconds. Without fail, everyone smiles back. This is power. Living in Kansas, I have been taught the value of agriculture and industry in a way that Colorado doesn't show you all the time. So this is called Backbone of America. Train hauls hundreds of bone-white turbine blades, a spine of potential energy slinking across Kansas. Thanks. Another poem about just being observational. She's a poem. A child sitting on the open attic windowsill, sneaking a smoke, drinking a Coke, looking out on the street, Oblivious, she's a poem. Thanks. I have a couple of bar-related poems. I think it's fun to write about being a bartender. This is Clocked Out. We removed a gallbladder in 32 minutes, cut to cut, the surgeon boasted, still in his scrubs at the pub. As you are well aware of by now, I like those short poems. This is Memorial for a Graphite Artist. At Kath Riley's funeral, the sky looked like one big smudge. I have a series of birthday poems in here, so it's all, it goes from 22 to 28. So this is the poem I wrote for myself for my 27th birthday. At 33,000 feet somewhere above Colorado, my birthday sunrise bleeds the same way my mother bled. From the horizon up. Beyond blood, radiance. Thanks. Are you familiar with blackout poetry or erasure poetry? Yeah, it's when you have another piece of writing and then you black out a bunch of the words, and whatever's left you make a poem out of. So this is one of those. It's a really fun way to practice. Like, you don't have to think about creating the words, you just get to select the words that you think would go well together. Wanted. This is taken from a fishing manual. Dear most wanted guy, ruddy, white, clean cut. You walk to work, auto, body, muscular. I saw your picture posted. Wanted 200 pounds of scar and tattoo. Wanted to read you. Sorry. I like to surprise people with this one. When my parents were here visiting, I was at the bar and somebody asked me what type of poems I write. And before I could answer, my mom whipped her head around and she went, "Shocking ones." So I always have to apologize to my mom. And I wrote her a nice sweet poem as an olive branch. So this is one of my favorite shocking poems. It's called Terry Might Be Dead, Lines from an At-Home Caretaker. Last night, Terry acted strange, told me thank you, I love you. Oh, and see you in the AM. But if I don't, it's because I took off like a big bird. This morning, I was making coffee in her kitchen when I thought I heard her shout, as loud as an old lady can shout, "Open the damn door!" But when I went to check on her, she was asleep. Terry might be dead. All right, do you want to hear that revised version of A Good Hater? Okay. I realized nobody knew who Don Scher was. So let's start there. In a room full of Whitman scholars, someone says Whitman was a good hater. I know he would hate the way we sit in this swanky London hotel, pick apart his handwriting, his misused dashes, bicker over his loopy doodles of sperm mid-swim. I know he would hate the way we quote him when he himself said quoting is a thing that gets to be a disease. Would he hate how we stay and listen even when we don't want to? Would he understand this is how we love him? A little different, huh? Have any of you been to the Lawrence Public Library? A few of you? It's a really beautiful modern library that they just renovated. And the writer William S. Burroughs lived in Lawrence for a long time. And writers like to write about writers a lot. Okay. So this is At the Library with William S. Burroughs. Also, again, PSA. The Lawrence Public Library has a lot of really awesome literary events, and Lawrence is just an hour and change away. So if you have the chance to go check out some of those events, I highly encourage you to. Okay, at the library with William S. Burroughs. On the corner of 7th and Kentucky, I watch cars turn the wrong way down the one-way from a cushy perch in this glass box library that lurches over the busy Lawrence Street. Burroughs never stepped foot in this library, the library that swallowed his library. But I think he'd like the view, talking shit, giving tourists the bird. When you are a reporter for the Emporia Gazette or any other well, maybe not any other newspaper, but at the Emporia Gazette, the reporters have to rotate who listens to the police scanner. And so for 24 hours, you are on duty for the police scanner, and you have to listen and you have to determine whether or not it's serious enough to go to. Because some of the times it's just like a little fender bender. Some of the times somebody has died. You just never know what's going to come across the police scanner, so you're just chasing ambulances. So I have a series of poems about what that was like. The reporter on police scanner duty, lockdown. Remember that? Not as many car accidents to report these days. Folks staying home, avoiding plague. More suicides and battery. Both go unreported. Thanks. That was always bizarre too, like the things that you can't report on. Very strange. The reporter on police scanner duty. What's important? On the scene of a fiery car accident that left a toddler pinned under her dead father in a soybean field, the reporter flips through her notebook for a blank page. Finds, you are the best thing that's happened to me. She finishes her job, drives safely home. One time we had a snow day. I guess we probably had a few last year, but it didn't apply to me then. The reporter on police scanner duty, snow day. Everyone's tracks are visible if they're going out at all. Nobody murders on a snow day. Eventually, I was done with that job. The reporter skips town. Finished. The reporter probably has a meeting right now, but instead she's resting on a lake dock, drinking coffee at pace with the sunrise, swishing her feet through the water. No news here. I told students this earlier, and I'm going to tell you again. Back to going to law school for a hot second. Creative writing is a great entry point into law school. So this is a law school poem. I've got 2 left for you, and then I want to hear from you. Big firm recruitment party. At the big law firm's recruitment party, 10th floor, top floor, attorneys stay late at the office, show students their bar, their dry cleaning service, their trophies, their best view, their teeth. My last one is leave it to the lunatics. Cross my threshold. Take off your watch. I'll lock the door. Turn off the porch light. No more visitors tonight. Thanks, everyone. Your turn. If you wrote on a piece of paper, I would love to hear from you. If you didn't, that's okay. I'm not going to force you to. If you did write on a piece of paper and you don't want to read it out, that's okay too. At the end of all of this, I would love it if you could put your little notes in my Valentine's box up here. If you want to hold on to them, you can, but I love to read what you wrote. So would anybody like to share? Ed.
Yes, I have an ugly poem. 1980s cock rock blasts from pickup as it hits a box of kittens. Oh no!
Ouch. Thanks for sharing.
Yes.
Shocking. Rosalie.
I've been thinking lately about what to bring a dying person for their birthday. If she's on hospice or trying to give away what she'll leave behind, is it rude of me to bring a gift and just make more work for her, another item on the list to find a home for?
Wow.
Do I read everything I wrote on the paper?
Yeah, if you'd like to, however you want to do it.
So earlier today, somebody told me they were going to pray for me, and I found it condescending, so I wrote about that. It says, I don't want to pray, but I can't find an ear. Don't know why I crave being saved, but I do from it all for myself. Right on, Kevin. Right on.
Oh, thanks.
My life is made up of vines and lines and napalm. Lindsay, are you ever scared of a poem of yourself? And thank you.
Yeah.
That a question you want me to answer?
Yes. Yeah, are you ever scared of a poem or scared of like
Yeah.
something too much?
Yeah. That Cravings poem, I bawled afterward. I was like, oh shit, I didn't know that was in me. Yeah, there are a lot of poems I write and I'm like, oh no. Because it's either that bad or like, I can't believe that I came up with that. I think about that when people make horror films. Like, oh my God, that was in your head. And so it's scary in that sense too, where it's just, I can't believe I thought that. Or I can't believe I thought that and wrote it, and therefore I'm terrified of that poem and terrified about that part of me, but also terrified of a lot of the truths that these things reveal about us. Like when we use creative writing as some form of therapy, as a lot of us do, it reveals a lot of things about ourselves that sometimes we're not ready to address. And at that point, we're forced to. So yes, on many levels. And sometimes I'm afraid of a poem because it's just that bad. And I'm like, oh, come on, Garcia, you could do better.
Yeah.
Sort of along this lines, I know you come from a family of artists who are very supportive, but like you mentioned, you're not find some of your poems shocking. Are there things that you feel, maybe not that you can't write about, but that you can't share yet because of people around you or in your life?
Yeah. Even with my parents, like they haven't gotten their copy of this book yet because I have been too afraid to send it to them. But especially other people. For some reason, I find it easiest to share these poems with strangers because I don't care about their opinion of me, or I don't know, or I'll never see them again, and that's fine. But sharing these poems with people that I care about and who care about me, that's always nerve-wracking. There was something else I was going to say about that. There does come a point, though, and this has been interesting. Like when a poem that you're afraid of that you do think is good and worth sharing gets published, and people start to see it, and then they respond positively instead of negatively like you expect them to, that is one of the most encouraging feelings. You're like, oh wow, I was brave and I was supported. And so I now feel like I can keep doing that. And I think a lot of poems like the ones in this book would not have ever come to be without putting them out one at a time and then being received well and supported, and or for people to say, wow, that one really resonated with me, which always blows my mind because they feel so deeply personal to me, that I'm like, oh, if somebody else feels this way, then I want to be able to use my voice to help them share their voice because they share this experience. So yeah, but it seems to go well. So far. We'll see. Yeah, Kevin.
So, it's difficult dealing with difficult material, and it seems like some of your poetry comes from a vein of maybe beat poets like Diane Weimar and Goldman, or down the confessional tree like through Sexton, Platt, Berriman, Frank Bedard, Kim Amnesia, Dorian Locks, Diane Seuss. But how do you think about craft when it comes to marshaling these words so that it's not just your heart, but a kind of pattern on the page, if that makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. You have to think back to, so like that's you find the heart of the poem, and then you say, how do I make this into a poem? And thank goodness for a high quality education. You find all those literary elements. You want the metaphor there. Some of these things are riddled with metaphor. Some of them are entirely literal. You want it to have a nice rhythm. You want to use all the right words. You want to use the strongest words, the most accurate words. Line breaks are really important. So I like to think of every line as being a really strong image in itself. And I also think about the layers to the poems. Like, can this poem stand on its own without picking it apart? Yes. If somebody did want to pick it apart, would they find something more there? Yes. Like, that is how I feel like I can combine my academic education and knowledge and practice and all of these things that I've read of poets I really admire into these poems. And so some poems, they start in one place and I have found the heart of it, and by the time that they make it into a book, it's an entirely different poem. It is nothing like the way it started because those poetic elements weren't there at the beginning. But you want to have both. You want to find how it can be something that people in an academic environment can appreciate and not just be turned off by, and something that everybody in the outside world can also appreciate and not be turned off by. So I'd like to think I achieved some of that balance.
I've got a follow-up.
Yeah.
You've gotten to hang with some of the kind of proto-beat poets when you went in Colorado, but also you travel in circles with folks like Reberg, Hennessy, Latham. Latham was there the other evening. So you don't just read this stuff, you learn from these folks and
Absolutely.
write conversation.
Yeah.
Tell me about how that influences what you write, and I'm sure it influences them too, but we don't have them.
I'd like to think so. Just talking to these people, like how they live their lives, how they write, thinking, like hearing them talk about their creative process, that informs a lot of the way that I think about mine. And also, this is another thing I told students earlier, like I only take advice from people whose work I really enjoy and admire. And I don't take any creative advice from people whose work I don't admire and appreciate. And maybe I'm limiting myself in that way, but there are these writers I really look up to, and I'm like, how can I emulate them? And even in some of our classes, we had to write imitation poems, and we got to pick who we were imitating. And that teaches you a lot about, okay, what were they thinking through as they crafted this poem? And I do that with these these neo-beats. Just in conversation and in reading their writing and then applying it to what I'm making. Plus, you gotta live a poetic life. I think that's a big part of it too. It's not just something you do, it's something you are. Yeah, Mary Beth.
So I'm craving a glass of red wine.
Oh, let's go to Wine Wednesday.
But I started thinking about literary haters.
Yeah.
Besides Walt Whitman, John Swift, Alexander Pope, J.R.R. Tolkien. But my question, sort of inspired by that, is who are literary cravers?
Ooh.
Or artistic cravers.
Uh-huh.
Like if you're sort of transitioning from artists you admire, who do you think captures craving?
This room full of people? I think students are number one. Like there's a reason you go to school, and it's because you're craving to gain more knowledge about something. And specifically, people in our field, as far as the literary cravers go, and people who study history and art, they're the art cravers. Anybody who goes out for First Friday, anybody who goes to see the galleries, anybody who goes to museums, anybody who really loves good music. Like, I think we are all art cravers in some capacity. There are always those things that we really jive with. And then there are things that we're like, yeah, that's not really my jam. So it's just a matter of finding those things that you crave and that others around you who you admire and appreciate crave. Yeah, I think everybody craves art and literature to a degree. I'd like to think so. I did meet somebody who didn't like music once, and I was like, what the fuck? Get out of here, you're a robot.
Can I do a follow-up to that?
Yeah.
Are there poets or maybe artists in another genre or medium
Careful.
that you would say are cravers? Like, is Whitman a craver?
Yeah, Whitman's a craver for sure. Whitman's a craver of life. And oh man, I do always appreciate poets who write about other poets, which I do find a lot. So I feel like in this neobeat world, we're all writing about each other. Like I've got some poems about Reberg, and Reberg's got poems about everybody. And like if you see it so overtly covered, then it's like, oh, obviously, like you're craving this person's art, literature, whatever. Yeah, I would say like all of my modern poet friends, I would say Kevin, you're a craver. I find that we reference each other a lot and we crave each other's art a lot, and that's really cool to be in a writing community specifically, and I'm sure this applies to other communities too, where we just want to be around each other, we want to learn from each other, we want to write about each other. Like once you get into this weird little contemporary poetry world that we've got going, a small press world especially, you will start to see like so-and-so dedicated this poem to so-and-so, and that so-and-so dedicated this poem to this other so-and-so, or wrote it about them too. And I think there's this really beautiful thing that we're really emulating, not only these classic writers and artists, but each other as living, creating beings, and sharing that with each other. So I don't know, that was a really long-winded answer for, I think anybody who's involved in this craves other things, other people who are involved in this. Yeah.
I brought with me a book. It's called Novels and Felines, and they're from Crime Blotter, essentially the Crime Blotter entries. And the guy on the cover is his mugshot. He was arrested for anarchism, and I thought I would read 3 of his little short because it connected to cravings. A virgin, 13, subject to lewd advances by a 10-year-old, killed him with 3 thrusts of her knife. To swindle her, Philippe of Marseille arranged to be caught in flagrante with his mistress by an imposter policeman. He was arrested. Sailor Renault carried out a suicide pact with his mistress in Toulon. Their last resort, a coffin for 2, or at least a double grave.
Nice. Thanks for sharing this. It's a cool book.
Not a poem or anything, just more of a request, but keep winning, keep writing. Somebody needs it. I'm telling you, you're doing great stuff.
Thanks. So are you. Teamwork.
I don't want to be a buzzkill. This is probably the right place to stop.
I did want to say, I sold out of books the other night. That's a really good problem to have. I did steal for myself a copy of each of them. If you feel like this is your perfect opportunity to buy a book, I will let you buy a book. If you are okay with placing an order online, I will mail you a book when I get more books, and toss in some extra little treats for thanking you for your patience. So I do a little QR code there. Because of that, I also printed out the whole book. And if you want to go home with some free poems, just take some loose leaf sheets of poems. I also have stickers up here and my contact information, and then a bunch of show and tell stuff if you want to come take a look. So thank you all for having me.